welcome to You,
Me,
and TV. I'm Mike.
I'm Gia.
And today we're going to be talking about the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm was created by Larry David, and it premiered on HBO on October 15th, 2000.
There are currently 9 seasons. Seasons 1 through 8 are available to stream on Amazon Prime, and all 9 seasons are available to stream on HBO. And speaking of HBO, we always start off by reading the description, and so we're going to read the HBO description of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It says, Larry David stars as Larry David, living the good life out in Los Angeles and stumbling through one faux pas after another.
Living the good life.
Living the good life out in Los Angeles. That's not really a good description for this show.
Although, I guess he's living the good life in that he's like a wealthy person, but he never seems to be happy, does he?
Yeah, well, he's got one faux pas after another, but he is living the good life to a certain extent because Larry David is the co-creator of Seinfeld, and he found much success with that.
Yeah, in real life. And he's playing himself.
He's playing a version of himself. So yeah, if you're unfamiliar with Curb Your Enthusiasm, oh my goodness, it's a fantastic show, and it is about Larry David, the co-creator of Seinfeld, kind of living his life, and like we said, having one faux pas after another.
Yeah.
And so, we're going to be talking about Curb Your Enthusiasm. We're very excited. One of our favorite shows. And, welcome, guys. Welcome so much. Welcome so much. Is that a thing people say?
That's not a thing, no.
Well, hey, if this is your first time listening, we're glad you're here. It's You, Me, and TV. We talk about you and me. That's your hosts, Mike and Gia. And we also talk about TV. That's what we do.
Yep.
Yeah, so we kind of like to inject our own experiences into some of the content of the show, and we also kind of go through the show, but always taking a look at first episodes of shows. And this show, in a way, not a spinoff of Seinfeld, but it has its roots in Seinfeld. We covered Seinfeld a few weeks ago on the podcast.
Yeah.
You should check that out if you haven't done that.
Yeah, Larry David, the creator of Curb Your Enthusiasm, was... In addition to being the creator of Seinfeld, he's also the inspiration for the George Costanza character on Seinfeld. So that kind of gives you a sense of what this character is like on Curb.
And so let's talk about some of the people that are in this show, just to get us familiar with them. So we got Larry David playing himself. We've got Cheryl Hines playing his wife, Cheryl David. And we've got, let's talk about some of these as we go through. I was reading Cheryl Hines, who I haven't seen her, I guess, in a lot of other things. She was in that show, Suburgatory, which aired for a few seasons on ABC. And one of the things that was interesting about the casting of Cheryl Hines was that she didn't get to meet Larry's real life wife at the time or anything like that, because he didn't want her. There was like some quote, I saw it somewhere, I don't have it written down, but it was something like, she was like, should I be meeting with your wife? And Larry was like, no, you don't need to do that. Which, if you've seen the show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, you can kind of picture that sort of circumstance. So she's like not really playing his actual real life wife, just she's playing his wife in the show, but it's not necessarily based off of his real life wife, who he's now divorced from, which he'll later get divorced in the show. That's not really a spoiler necessarily. And who else we got in here? We got Jeff Garlin playing Jeff Green, which is Larry's agent. And Jeff Garlin, I've seen him do stand-up. He came to Ohio University back in the day. It was awesome.
I don't think I knew that.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I've told you that before. He was, and it was really cool because he, like, a lot of his stand-up is improv in the same way that the show, not in the same way, but the show Curb Your Enthusiasm is a lot of improv. But I listened to his interview on... he was on that podcast that's a Good One, a podcast about jokes where they break down comedians' jokes, which that's a great podcast.
Yeah.
There's a recommendation right there, Good One. And he just talked about how he just doesn't really know exactly how he's going to start things off until he goes out there. Really great stand-up, and we've seen some of his movies as well, which are also entertaining. Also, we just watched Daddy Daycare the other day.
Yeah, he's in Daddy Daycare.
And you know what? I had fun watching that movie.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Not bad.
And who else we got in here? Susie Essman playing Susie Green. That's Jeff's wife.
Yeah, and she has a stand-up special like from the 80s that we found on
HBO. It's like one of those old comedy half hours or something like that, and it was funny. Yeah. So
she's in this episode, the pilot, but she's not featured too much in it, and which is too bad because she's a really great character.
She really is a great character.
Yeah.
Also in this episode, we've got Richard Lewis, who plays himself. He's a comedian. If you're not familiar, you're probably familiar with him. You recognize him.
Yeah. And he and Larry David are like longtime friends in real life. Like they met when they were like 13.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's always crazy when people meet like that young and then go, like Seth Rogen and I think Evan Goldberg, his writing partner, they met when they were like in high school and started writing Superbad in like 9th grade or something like that. Yeah. That's always kind of cool. And Richard Lewis is in this episode, and he's a recurring character as well, playing himself. And some other recurring characters in this show, there's a lot of them, but Ted Danson playing himself, and his wife Mary Steenburgen.
Yeah, they're not in this pilot, but they do come in the second episode,
and they're great.
And they're recurring
so funny.
characters. Yeah.
And then Bob Einstein plays Marty Funkhauser. Oh man, he passed away recently.
Yeah, and
R.I.P.
He's the brother of Albert Brooks in real life.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know which one has like a stage name, or I don't know why they have different.
I don't know either.
I don't know,
unless
but
they have
they're
different
brothers.
Parents somewhere in there.
Yeah, maybe.
Not. Yeah,
but they're brothers.
Yeah, and he used to do his character Super Dave, which was like a spoof of what's the guy who jumps things on a motorbike? You know what I'm talking about? Evil Knievel. Yeah.
And was that on
I don't know what that was.
David Letterman, I think.
Yeah, he was on like just a lot of things. He even had, I think, his own show for a while too. But Marty Funkhauser.
Yeah, I'm disappointed he's not in this pilot episode because he's
one of my favorite characters. Oh my gosh. And then later on too in the series, J.B. Smoove playing Leon Black when they take in a family from a hurricane.
Yeah.
J.B. Smoove is another guy we've seen
saw him do
stand up.
He
was funny. He's just a great guy. So those are some. This show is full of guest stars all the time too. I mean,
a lot of them playing themselves.
A lot of them playing themselves because again, it's set out in
but
Hollywood.
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
The whole Seinfeld cast comes in for a season at one point
for like a revival of the series.
A lot of fun.
Seinfeld.
A lot of fun. A lot of cool stuff there. Who are some other great guest stars? I don't remember.
Lauren Graham.
Oh yeah, Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah,
Lauren Graham was in the most recent season, I believe.
Yeah, Andrea Savage, who we just talked about her show I'm Sorry
a
few weeks ago.
We'll talk about her episode toward the end. I got that in the notes there.
Okay, yeah. Wanda Sykes.
Oh right, yeah, she's a recurring character as well. So this show, again, if you've not seen it, you got to watch it, especially if you got Amazon
Vivica
Prime.
A.
It's
Fox,
right there. I think that is
Black,
who plays.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Curb Your Enthusiasm, it started off, actually, there was a special. So if you're unfamiliar with this is, I guess, not available on Amazon Prime, but is available with HBO. But it was called Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and it was this HBO special. I'm going to go ahead and read the info for that from the description from HBO. It says, before it was a comedy series, Curb Your Enthusiasm was a deadpan 1999 mockumentary. See how Larry David tries to persuade HBO executives to gamble on a 2-part special about his return to the stand-up circuit with help from friends like Jerry Seinfeld and Jason Alexander. So we watched that. And again, it's available to stream on HBO. And I remember I actually have the DVD of season 1. I bought it back in like high school, and
Is
it's
that
funny.
special on there?
Yeah, that special's on there. Yeah, and I remember it used to be on HBO all the time too. I would remember seeing the info on the TV back in the day.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting, but it is different.
It's a little different. I think some of the actors are different as well.
Yeah, and Larry, his character has kids in this special. I don't think that we see them, but they're referenced in it. Whereas in the show, he doesn't have kids. In real life, he does have kids.
Yeah.
He has 2 kids. Yeah.
And this show, or the special, I think it's pretty funny. It's it feels like the pilot. Like, it feels like this is the real pilot of the show, because after HBO did this and it was successful and all that, then they ordered, a series and things like that.
Right, but that's not what we're going to be talking about here today, other than just right now.
Yeah, they're just like
mentioning it, but we're going to talk about the actual first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. So, but anyway, check that special out. It's fun, and it's kind of unique and interesting.
And it's kind of similar to that. When we talked about Seinfeld, 2 weeks ago on our podcast?
Yeah, a few weeks ago there.
We talked about how the original idea for Seinfeld was it was going to be like a day in the life of or a week in the life of the comedian, seeing how they get their material for like a set. And I feel like the Curb special is
it's similar to that. It has some of those same kind of concepts in there. And it's funny though. It is funny. And that was my first well, I don't think I watched it when it was on, but I remember seeing it on there. That was my first introduction to Larry David. I never heard of Larry David when I watched Seinfeld and stuff like that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that's so I didn't know that was I don't even think I thought about creators of shows, because this came out when I was like in 9th grade probably.
Right, yeah. And I remember at the time, my dad has been a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, like from the beginning. He was a big Seinfeld fan, so he was familiar with Larry David, and he started watching this right from the start. And I remember, like, before I ever started watching it, him trying to explain the concept of the show to me, and I was kind of confused about whether it was like a reality show or not. It's a little confusing.
Yeah, it is, because it seemed like that, at least back in the day, because that
was ahead of its time.
If this came out in 2000 and the mockumentary came out in 99, I mean, that's like when Survivor came out, and that's when reality TV really started to be a thing that was on all the channels all the time. And so it kind of takes advantage of that. But yeah, it is a little bit ahead of its time. That's even before the British Office, I believe. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so, well, let's talk a little bit more about the actual, show. We was talking about Cheryl Hines earlier, playing Larry David's wife. Some of the actresses that were considered for that role, one of them, Nia Vardalos from My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And she does show up in the series at one point, too.
Yeah, she does, playing herself.
Yeah. But I found this quote from Robert B. Weedy, the guy who directed the HBO special, and I think he's also an executive producer on the show. And this is about the casting of Cheryl Hines. And it says, I got an invitation one night for an actor's showcase. Lo and behold, one of the actresses was Cheryl Hines, who was unknown to all of us. But I remember the bit that she did to this day. It was some sort of employee training meeting where they had some guy advising about what to do in a disaster in the workplace. He would say, okay, so there's been an earthquake and the water is cut off. There's no running water in your office and you can't escape. You're thirsty. What do? And Cheryl pipes up, well, I suppose if push came to shove, you could drink your own urine. The room just goes real quiet and everybody stares at her. And the guy stares at her and says, well, okay, I was thinking more about having water stored in the room or, possibly detaching a hose from the back of the refrigerator and drinking the water that way. Cheryl goes, oh, well, yeah. And then I remember the line that really killed me. Well, I did say if push came to shove. I just said this girl's really, really funny. And that line, I did say if push came to shove, gave Cheryl a career. So that's fun. I could kind of picture that.
Yeah, so she's really good at improv, which is important because like this show is different from probably any of the shows we've done in that it doesn't have a script.
It doesn't have a script. It has, right? I guess, I've heard a few different versions of what it actually has, but it's some sort of outline. And they just do the scenes, and I guess they kind of work off of that. And after they do it a few times, you might have certain lines or certain details that need to come out. But other than that, they just kind of based off of these outlines.
Yeah. So there's no like dialogue written out.
Right.
It's just here's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's very impressive that people are able to do that and make a show out of it.
The show feels so well written.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is a show kind of like Seinfeld where like one little detail from the beginning will like keep coming back or come back in the end to like seal the deal or whatever.
Yeah, the payoff of the joke at the end. Yeah, there's a callback to something that happened in the beginning. Yeah,
so, which is pretty impressive when you consider that it's all improv.
Yeah. And we talked about how there's 9 seasons. One detail too, after the 8th season in 2011, Curb went on indefinite hiatus, and then it returned for a 9th season in 2017, and which is fantastic, by the way. And then it was renewed for a 10th season, which is scheduled to premiere in 2020. So there's more to come. This show's been on then for like 20 years.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's a long time. And like I said too, I didn't really watch it too much right when it was on. It was probably a few seasons into it where I started watching it, and then like buying the DVDs and all that kind of stuff. But I think I was introduced to this from my mom as well. So sort of, parents coming across that.
Yeah.
Those HBO
good job,
shows.
Parents.
Good work, parents. All right. Hey, let's get into this episode here. I'm going to read the episode description from HBO. It says, in the series premiere, an innocent bunch up. Oh, the episode title is The Pants Tent. I think I forgot to say that earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, The Pants Tent. Great episode title.
Yeah.
In the series premiere, an innocent bunch up in Larry's trousers gives rise to an embarrassing misunderstanding. That's a fun episode description.
Yeah.
There's some puns in there. I like it. That's good stuff. So you want to start off talking about the beginning?
Oh, sure. So, unlike most shows, there's no cold open in this. It's just like you go straight from like the HBO like logo to the opening music for Curb Your Enthusiasm, which if you've ever seen the show, it's like very fun music. And what we watched this like documentary about the making of the show, where they were they talked a little bit about this music, and it was music that Larry had.
He heard it in a commercial for a bank.
Yeah, he heard it
and
in
they
a
like
commercial for a
tracked
bank.
down the bank and all that to get the music. And
he found it. The song is called Frolic. It's just like instrumental.
And you can listen on Spotify. So
yeah,
if you search Curb Your
if you're not
Enthusiasm.
familiar, you probably are. But if you're not, and when Larry was describing it, he described it as the kind of music you could play. You could play it after anything happening, and it would like make the situation like less serious. Like, so you could play it with, if somebody died, you could play it and it would sound comedic.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the vibe that this show is going for, and it really accomplishes that.
I think there was one time, I can't remember. I feel like there was one time where I had that song pulled up like on my phone or something like that, and I think I had some students that, because I'm an educator, as I mentioned before, that were familiar with the show and know it, and I think I like just, they would say something, and then I just hit play on my phone, and it would start playing the boom, 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 and then I just did it over and over just to kill the joke.
It's just like so iconic that anytime I hear like that, I see the HBO logo and hear that little like, it's just like a tone.
Oh yeah, that's
the
boom.
HBO song. Yeah, I like just expect to hear the Curb Your Enthusiasm song after that, and it's funny because we'll probably at some point on the podcast do the show Difficult People, which is a Hulu series. And I know there's one episode where the main characters of that show are watching some show on HBO, and they see that logo and hear that song, and then they just start singing or like humming the Curb Your Enthusiasm theme song, which is, it's so funny and true to life because that's what happens in my head every time I see the HBO logo.
I wonder if all the HBO shows kick right into music and don't have cold opens. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Do they do previously on though? Some have to do previously on, so maybe not.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, if you know, let us know.
Yeah.
Tweet at us or something like that.
Yeah, but for Curb, it's just this song. The Frolic is what it's called, and the title card saying Curb Your Enthusiasm, and then we go straight into the show. Straight
into Larry David's crotch. The first scene that we see, the first shot is Larry David is sitting wearing some brown corduroy pants, and it's a close up of his crotch, and there's a bunch up going on his crotch.
Yeah, and he's kind of like fiddling with it, with the fabric there. Because it's bunching up so much, and he calls over his wife Cheryl to take a look at the 5-inch bunch up that I've got here, and so Cheryl like goes to take a look, and she agrees with him. It does kind of look like he's a little bit excited.
It does look like that a little bit.
It looks like that's what's going on.
You know what? That happens just the bunch up. Yeah.
Just the bunch up.
That happens in men's pants. You know what? It doesn't happen to me as much anymore, but in the 90s, in the early 2000s, when my pants were much baggier.
Big pants era.
It was a big pants era.
Yeah.
And things would bunch up. And it was it was an issue. Maybe more like middle school when you were like nervous about that kind of thing. Like, are people going to think like something's going on here? But it's an issue, especially with those corduroy pants. Those things were, they would just fold and all that kind of stuff. Right. So I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, and Larry and Cheryl kind of talk about this for a little while here, how, sometimes it happens with pants, but these ones, it seems like it's happening even more than you would expect. It really looks like a pants tent.
It really does. And that's the opening there, but then we set up a little bit. Larry wants to go to the movies. And he asked Cheryl if she wants to go to the movie, and she's like, you know what I do on Monday nights. And he's like, take a bath? And she's like, I have yoga on Monday nights. Can't you skip it? So he's kind of set on seeing this new Dustin Hoffman movie. And he he decides to call up his friend Richard Lewis.
Yeah, because Cheryl was like, why don't you just go alone? He's like, no, I'm going to call Richard Lewis.
There
so
you
he
go.
calls him up to see if he wants to go with him.
And it's an awkward, there's a one-sided phone conversation. We just see Larry on this talking, and we were actually watching the DVD commentary of this, and they were all commending Larry for his good one-sided phone call skills. Yeah.
There's no one on the other end. There's no dialogue that he's supposed to be responding to. He's just making it up as he goes.
Larry, by the way, was very modest during the commentary.
Yeah, you can tell he's uncomfortable talking about his own celebrity, which actually comes up in this episode.
It does. Yeah. But awkward situation there where Richard Lewis is actually going to that movie at the same time, but with his girlfriend. And so Larry's like, well, okay, I think I'm going to go.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see you there.
It's a new girlfriend.
It's a new girlfriend.
Lewis's, which, that's kind of a recurring theme, I think, too, throughout the series is Richard Lewis always has a new girlfriend.
We mentioned Andrea Savage from I'm Sorry.
Oh, yeah. She at one point plays his girlfriend, but he dates around a lot. In this pilot episode, Larry and Cheryl have not yet met Richard Lewis's new girlfriend that he's going out with, but they have plans to meet her like this upcoming Saturday night. They're all going to dinner.
That's awkward when you see somebody out somewhere and it's like, should I be hanging out with them right now, or do I just keep doing what I'm doing? Now this they called ahead of time, so he could have went and then maybe sat with them or something like that. He doesn't quite do that, but it's kind of like if you go,
a little offended that Richard Lewis doesn't invite him to come with him.
Right, but he's going on a date with his new girlfriend.
Yeah, and that's what Cheryl tells him. He's going on a date. Why would you want to be invited along? On that? Yeah.
It is weird though. It's kind of like when you see, it's not exactly the same, but if you go to a restaurant and you see your friends at that restaurant, and it's am I supposed to sit with them?
Yeah.
They just sat down. We had that one time where we were sitting at a table directly next to some of our neighbors, and which was nice. We ended up having dinner with them in a way. But it was do we
awkward.
Turn and start talking to them, or do we just say hello?
Met them once before that. Yeah.
It's awkward. Or I've sat at the bar one time at a restaurant, and one of my coworkers sat down next to me and was like, "Oh my gosh, hi, how are you?" And it's do I keep this conversation up?
Yeah, because it's you're sort of having dinner with that person, but not really.
That's tricky.
Yeah, you're just both having dinner there.
And this show, similar to Seinfeld, it explores those social, those gray areas of social interaction. Although we'll find that Larry does not navigate those very well, or at least the people around him are very aggressive about it.
Yeah, and he's maybe less concerned with appearances than Jerry Seinfeld.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, he's more of just kind of do what he wants without caring about what other people think.
Right. So to move along the episode here, after Larry gets off the phone with Richard Lewis, he talks to Cheryl and kind of explains what's going on. But then the phone rings again, and Larry picks it up, but he hands it off to Cheryl. Again, this is the year 2000, so these are home phones, landlines, if you will. And Cheryl answers, and it's her friend. What's her friend's name? Nancy. And Nancy, I think she needed something to do that night. She was looking to do something.
To hang out. We're only hearing Cheryl's end of the conversation.
That's right. And Cheryl suggests that she goes to this movie with Larry.
Yeah, and we see Larry, meanwhile,
he's no, I don't want that. Don't do that. Yeah, what are you doing?
This is a very awkward suggestion of Cheryl, right?
That's real weird. If I
how
was
would you feel if I made you go to the movies with one of my friends?
I would love to go to the movies with one of your friends, but I would love for you to be there also.
Yeah.
And for it to be, because, Larry probably is either looking to just go to this movie by himself or just stay home. I would probably just rather stay home than be forced upon one of your friends to go to the movies.
It's an awkward situation.
It's an awkward situation, especially if you were just doing something else. It's let's just wait till we're all hanging out. But Larry, then Cheryl kind of shoves the phone in Larry's face, and Larry is talking to her now, and he has agreed to go to the movies with her.
Yeah.
A little awkward. Yeah. A little awkward. And so that's kind of the end of that scene. There's a few things about this house that they're living in, though.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk a little bit about this.
So
because
it changes later on, the house. Although one thing in the commentary, too, they mentioned that they're like, oh, yeah, this is the first house. Nobody was living in this house when we shot the first season, but then people moved in. So we had to go to another house.
Yeah, so they're only in this actual house for the first season.
Yeah, and you noticed it's similar to another show that we covered on a different episode.
Yeah, the house is actually pretty similar to the house on the pilot episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, in that it seems like a much more modest house than you would expect this character to be living in. I mean, not that it's like a crappy house or anything, but it's just not like super extravagant for the guy who created Seinfeld.
Yeah, it looks pretty much just like a normal
house.
And I wonder if that's just, because it's the year 2000 too, and houses were different, I guess.
Yeah, but eventually, I think when we were listening to that commentary, they say Larry's had 2 other houses since then. Yeah. But I don't know when that commentary was recorded.
I think that commentary is probably from like 03 or 04 maybe.
Yeah, because it's been like 17 years between the first season of Curb and the most recent season of Curb. So they've been in a lot of houses.
They have been in a lot of houses.
They have gotten more extravagant. I don't think they ever got like obscenely extravagant or anything. But yeah, it is just kind of interesting to watch like the guy who created Seinfeld living in just like super normal looking house.
That's true. Although I listened to an interview with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays Elaine on Seinfeld, and she mentioned that she's lived in the same house for the past like 25 years or something like that.
That was on Armchair Expert when she was on there, Dr. Shepard's podcast.
And she, said it's kind of, it's not like super modest, but it's, modest by Hollywood standards and stuff like that. Yeah. Another thing too about the set there is that they mentioned in the commentary when they were dressing, I guess, the set, they were saying, if you got kids, the people building the set or whatever, if you've got kids, there's going to need to be stuff on this refrigerator.
Right.
And Larry, again, has kids in real life. And he was like, he just said like, oh, I don't want to put stuff in the refrigerator. We won't have kids then.
Yeah, so that's how the decision was made, that his character wouldn't have kids, which is a departure from his real life and from the special that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah. And that's such a huge,
that's so funny.
Like, that's such a huge decision.
That was the thing that made him decide that.
Right. I wonder if he was thinking like this is going to be a long-term show, or it's just like, I'm just doing this for a little while.
It's so funny. Yeah. But it's hard to imagine him having kids on the show.
Right.
So
but again, he's got kids.
Totally
How many kids
different.
does he have? I know he
has 2 kids in real life.
2 kids.
Yeah.
One of them is that Cassie David, which I follow on Instagram, by the way.
Oh, okay.
And it's a celebrity crush, if you will.
Oh, interesting.
I've mentioned that before.
Does she look like Larry David?
I maybe.
Did that ruin your crush?
I don't know.
Asking that question?
I'm not sure. And she's got like a show, or she's in development for a show, I think for Amazon. And she has some other like web series types of things too. So yeah. Anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah. But back to the show.
Okay.
The next scene. Larry is driving to the movies, and he's on his cell phone, hooked up in his car, like a speakerphone kind of situation. It feels very much like Bluetooth of today in a way.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of an indication of the character's like wealth and status, because I don't think a lot of people had like
that car looks nice for
back
2000.
In 2000.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas his house, we just talked about how that looks kind of modest, but yeah, he is talking on this Bluetooth type car phone thing.
Yeah, and he calls Jeff, his manager, and that's played by Jeff Garlin, and
he's also on a car phone. Jeff is also talking to Larry on a car phone.
And Jeff asked Larry if he wants to go golfing this weekend, and Larry says, I'll have to ask Hitler.
Yeah,
sort of
referring to his wife.
Right. And then we hear in the background on Jeff's end, we hear Jeff's parents that are like, Hitler? And they are horrified and shocked. And Larry is like, get me off a speakerphone. Joke. What are you doing? Get me off a speakerphone.
Yeah, he's like, who's in there? And Jeff is just like, oh, it's my parents. They're just in town.
And they're very angry about this.
Very angry.
And he gets him off a speakerphone, but they're very angry. And I think that's Larry gets angry too.
Yeah, he's angry that he didn't know that other people were in the car with Jeff. He thought he was having just a private conversation.
And this is an understandable type of thing.
Yeah.
Here. Anytime I am in the car, and you might even notice this, anytime I like call my mom when we're in the car, it's always like, hey, I'm in the car with Gia and the baby.
I know, I've noticed that.
Yeah, I don't want her to get on and just be like,
I hate Gia.
I hate Gia.
I hate the baby.
You just cracked yourself up with that.
I did.
I hate the baby. Oh, that would be very concerning if she said that. I would not like that at all. But yeah, if you're on speakerphone, you gotta let people know. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so anyway, the next scene, we are at the movies now. Larry has gone to the movies. The movie that he's going to see, a Dustin Hoffman movie, not a real movie. You see it on the marquee. It's big on the marquee in the little like in between scene, which is weird. That's not really how movies are displayed in that kind of way necessarily, unless it's I guess it's a big movie, very small theater, very big movie. The movie title is Hard Nut to Crack.
Yeah.
That's silly. And Larry goes to the theater. Nancy, Cheryl's friend, is already there. This is played by Robin Roseanne. And which
who
was
at the time was married to Mike Myers.
There you go.
Right.
And Larry spots Nancy and needs to make his way over to her, but there's a woman, on the aisle seat, I guess, that he needs to get by. And you recognize this woman? She's been in other things. Yeah.
So in real life, this woman, the actress is named Sophia Milos,
who does not have an Instagram, as far as I can tell. Just FYI, I looked, I checked it out.
So apparently, she played a crime boss on The Sopranos. I think she's also been in like CSI or NCIS or one of those crime shows that I haven't watched. Sorry. But the thing I recognized her from is she plays the sexy Italian woman that Chandler dates on Friends. In the episode where Chandler meets this girl who already has a husband and a boyfriend, so she imagines her relationship with Chandler will be, I guess, mainly sexual, she says, and Chandler is very excited by that prospect. So that's kind of a very iconic episode of Friends.
There you go.
But so it's that actress whose name in real life is Sophia, and also in the show is named Sophia, and that's kind of a recurring theme, I guess, on Curb, is that actors often play, even if they're not playing versions of themselves, they often have the same like first name. I guess it's just easier when you're improving. I suppose have your real name.
It's a thing they do a lot in like indie movies and things like that. I remember hearing that on some podcast sometime, and they do it on certain shows, too. Yeah. And anyways, Larry gets into an argument with this woman.
Of course.
He asked her to scoot.
If you've ever seen Curb, Larry gets into an argument with everyone all the time.
And he needs to get by her, and she doesn't really. She kind of sighs when he's like asked for her to scoot back a little bit.
Yeah, and she doesn't really move at all.
And they have an exchange, and she accuses him of looking at her breasts.
Yeah, and Larry's like, "Oh, you have such special breasts," or something like that. Really dismissive. He's not looking at her breasts. He's really just annoyed with her and wants to get past her.
That is quite the comeback there. I don't know what I would do if somebody accused me of looking at their breasts. I definitely wouldn't say, "Oh, your breast. Oh, it's a special breast." Yeah. I would be like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." No, I was not. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, which I think is what she was like expecting. Right. Is like, she would just like trump him with that and like kind of shut him down, but he just doesn't care and is not going to be bested by her.
Well, he finally gets by her and he goes and sits down next to Nancy, and she saw the whole altercation, and she kind of comforts him a little bit, and in comforting him, she starts to rub his arm.
Yeah, which is a little weird.
A little weird, but as she's rubbing his arm, she notices the pants tent.
She looks down.
It's very clear she does not think that it is a bunch up.
She doesn't think it's just material. She thinks that, her rubbing his arm has caused
some excitement.
Yeah. So it's a little bit awkward.
It's awkward, and then the movie starts, and they're just sitting there.
Yeah, and Larry notices her noticing it, and everybody just feels awkward about it.
That's an awkward movie, sitting there watching Dustin Hoffman cracking hard nuts.
Sure. And Larry, again, doesn't even want to be there to begin with Nancy.
But he did want to see the movie, so...
He did.
So
it's not a lose-lose.
I've never gone to the movies by myself.
I've gone by myself a few times when I was living in New York for a little while.
What were some good movies that you saw? You said, I have to go to the theater, watch a movie by myself.
I saw terrible movies.
This is before Netflix was a thing.
I saw The Backup Plan starring Jennifer Lopez by myself.
That's where she's pregnant and then meets a guy or something?
Yeah, it was awful.
Not
and
good.
Then the other thing I think I saw was Valentine's Day.
Oh, you saw that in theaters?
Yeah, it was awful.
I feel like I thought you saw Letters to Juliet. Did you also see that?
I did see that. I don't know if I saw that by myself.
I didn't see it with you.
I might have seen it with my mom. I might have seen it with my mom and your mom.
Oh, that's possible. Who knows?
But yeah, the two movies I saw by myself when I was living in New York and had nothing else to do were The Backup Plan and Valentine's Day, both of which were terrible. And I remember sitting there all alone and being so sad that there was no one sitting next to me that I could even joke about how bad the movie was.
Well, I thank you for seeing those without me.
Yeah, I'll bet you do.
All right, so the next scene is outside of the theater, and Larry and Nancy are out there, and they're talking to Richard Lewis. Oh, you know what? I didn't mention this.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Richard Lewis.
Back up a little bit.
Backing it up a little bit. Before the movie starts, Larry notices Richard Lewis coming in, and he sits down next to Sophia because that is Richard Lewis's new girlfriend.
Of course it is.
Oh,
of course it is.
Awkward.
That's also, we mentioned how Richard Lewis kind of has a new girlfriend in every episode, and it also always seems to happen that Larry ends up having an issue with that girlfriend or having some kind of mishap with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now that they're all outside of the theater, it's very awkward because we got a few things going on here. We've got Nancy, who has thought that she has aroused Larry. We've got Sophia, who is angry with Larry. Larry, who's angry with Sophia. And Richard Lewis, who's kind of oblivious to all of this.
Yeah.
And it's awkward and uncomfortable. Richard wants to go out for cappuccinos. Larry says it's late.
Which I think is another indication of the sort of wealth and class of these people.
You never go for coffee after a movie? I would go for coffee.
No, I would go for coffee. I wouldn't go for cappuccinos.
Oh my gosh, it's the year 2000.
His use of the word cappuccino to me was very douchey.
Well, it's probably more of a time period thing. People were always getting cappuccinos in the 90s.
Maybe, okay. All right, maybe.
Yeah. Nobody gets I don't even know what a cappuccino is. The only place I've ever gotten a cappuccino is at a gas station. When you want the fancy drink that's not quite hot chocolate, not quite coffee.
Yeah.
Is that what a cappuccino is? That sounds like a mocha. I don't know.
Really know.
But, what's also awkward here is that Larry is with a woman that is not his wife, which it's cool. They know that, but it's weird. It's uncomfortable.
It's weird because, so Larry says, I don't want to go out for coffee for cappuccinos because I'll be up until 5 a.m. if I have a coffee right now. And Richard Lewis is well, you could just have decaf, and Larry's no, I don't want to go out. He doesn't want to go out, of course, because he for one is not happy to be out with Nancy at all. That's weird. But also he doesn't want to hang out with Richard Lewis's new girlfriend that he just got in the fight with.
Right.
Yeah. And then but Larry and Cheryl had standing plans to go out with Richard and meet his new girlfriend this coming Saturday night.
Not gonna happen now.
Not gonna happen. Larry does not want to ever see this woman again. But Richard Lewis doesn't know that, and he is telling his girlfriend, "Oh, we're gonna go out with Larry to meet his wife on Saturday," and you just kind of see her make a weird face because she is assuming that the woman that Larry is with at the moment is his wife.
Yeah.
But it's not his wife.
So
that's a weird situation,
It is a weird situation.
Right?
But people can go out with people that are not their wives, can't they? I don't know.
I guess, but
it can happen. I feel like I went to a concert one time with your friend Susanna, maybe?
I think you did.
I had won some tickets and you were at work.
I was at work.
Yeah.
And you guys went together and it was...
And I've hung out with your sister before.
Have hung out like a lot of times.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
like,
it wasn't like
hung out together a lot.
The only time I've ever.
Yeah, and you've hung out with my sister just one-on-one, but we've also all hung out as a group a lot. I kind of get the sense that Larry doesn't know this woman super well.
Yeah, and I feel like if I ran into somebody that didn't know the other person and they'd be like, oh my gosh, Mike is out with someone that is not his wife. Who is this? The other day, I don't remember if I told you this or not, but I was at Kroger doing some Kroger, doing some shopping, and I ran into one of my mom's friends, her friend Mana. Very married. I know
Mana.
Oh, yes. Married. Deeply religious. Anyways, she was there.
So I shouldn't be worried.
Don't be worried. But
okay.
Oh yeah, no. I wasn't with Mana.
Okay.
Mana was with a man.
Okay.
And I was like, I just kind of saw her. I was like, well, I'm gonna stop and say hi and talk to her for a second. She's there. There's this man there. The man is like grabbing something off of the shelf. And I'm talking to her for a minute. The man's still kind of standing there. And then she's just like, oh, this man is helping me get this thing off from this shelf right here. Like, she had to clarify, like, I'm not at Kroger.
That's what you have to do.
You have to do that.
If you're, like, with somebody who's not your spouse, you have to
tell them who this person is. Even if this person is another stranger that you just happen to ask to get something off the shelf and now is awkwardly standing there next to you because I'm there talking to you.
Because otherwise you're in, like, a comedy of errors territory.
Oh, it is. It's mix-ups and all that kind of stuff. You always got to tell people.
Yeah. Gotta make it clear.
Anyway, next scene, we are back at the David household, the Larry David household, in the bedroom there. Cheryl's in bed reading. When Larry gets home, she asks how the movie was. Gia, how was that movie?
Well, I think Larry says it was not bad, but then he's got a lot of kind of bad news to break to Cheryl. And we also kind of get the sense that Cheryl is used to hearing bad news from Larry. The bad news just being kind of how Larry's day-to-day interactions with people go. But so the first thing that he tells Cheryl is that I think your friend Nancy thinks she got me aroused. And so then he kind of goes into detail about the whole pants tent incident and that kind of misunderstanding there, which of course, Cheryl and Larry had that conversation earlier, so she knows about the pants tent.
Although she does ask for clarification. Like, she says, like, but she didn't get you aroused though, right?
And Larry's like, no, she didn't. Yeah. And so they talk about that for a while. And then the next thing that Larry has to tell Cheryl is, we're not going out with Richard Lewis and his girlfriend. That's out. So there go their plans for Saturday. And
then the last thing, too, is that Cheryl mentions that Jeff left a message on their machine, and he just basically said, I'm sorry, but didn't explain what for.
Yeah.
And she asked Larry if he had any idea what that was. Now, obviously, Jeff was referring to the fact that
Larry called her Hitler.
Yes.
And his parents got upset.
Right. So Larry cannot tell her the truth in this circumstance.
He was telling the truth about the last two things.
Right.
The
fight
pants
in
tent
the pants
thing
tent.
And the fight with Richard Lewis's girlfriend.
But you can't tell the truth here that you're calling your wife Hitler.
Yeah.
And so he says, no, I don't know what that means. I don't know
why he was saying I'm sorry. Yeah. And when we were watching the pilot episode with commentary on the DVD, Cheryl Hines was saying that back when they were filming the first season, when she would get the they weren't even scripts, they're just outlines, but she would not even get the outline for the whole episode. She would just kind of get it for the scene. So when Larry would lie to her, when his character would lie to her, she didn't even know if he was lying or not. She never knew whether or not he was telling her the truth.
That's cool.
That's so funny.
That's a really cool way of doing a show.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So he is lying to her right here, but she doesn't know that.
She doesn't know it. Next scene starts off real fun. Now we're in Jeff's office. Again, Jeff is the manager of Larry. It starts off, Larry's on the phone, and he's like babbling some weird nonsense. He's like, oh, it took us a little bit to try to figure it out. I think that because he's on hold, he's either just making weird sounds or he's singing the hold music. I think he's singing the hold music.
I think that makes sense. He's humming along with that,
Yeah, he eventually just hangs up and tells him he'll call back later on.
Yeah. Was he trying to call Richard Lewis? Who's he trying to call?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
I think maybe.
I'm not sure. But he tells Jeff, hey, it was really uncool of you to leave that I'm sorry message on my phone, because now Cheryl wants to know why he's sorry. And meanwhile, Jeff is writing an apology letter to Kathy Griffin.
The comedian Kathy Griffin.
Yeah.
She's a character on the show, but also a real life person, Kathy Griffin. She plays herself. And Larry kind of asks, why he's writing this apology letter. What did he do? And Jeff is like, we did nothing to each other, but every week I end up writing her an apology letter.
I don't totally get that. It's funny. I don't totally get why. I mean, I'm assuming she's also in his, agency or whatever.
I think so. And or Larry's like, what a job you have.
Yeah.
That this is what you have to do.
Kathy Griffin, what was her level of fame in 2000? She was on Suddenly Susan, right?
Oh yeah, she was on Suddenly
with
Susan
Brooke Shields.
with Brooke Shields.
Was she doing other stuff? Was she in movies and all? She might
the
have been.
thing that I was mainly familiar with her for at that time was that she was on Seinfeld. She was in a few episodes of Seinfeld.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, she played another stand-up comedian that Jerry found annoying.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Hey, there you go. Kathy Griffin.
Yeah.
And the next thing that we see there is, they have to devise a plan. Larry and Jeff have to devise a plan of explaining why he said, I'm sorry on the phone.
What is Larry going to tell Cheryl when she asks him again, why was Jeff apologizing?
They could have done anything very simple, but they make it complicated. I think they make it complicated.
Yeah. Larry, when Jeff mentions he's writing that apology letter to Kathy Griffin, Larry's like, oh, well, that's what we'll tell Cheryl, is that Kathy Griffin contacted you about asking if I would want to write a pilot for her, and you told her that I wasn't available without consulting me.
There you go.
So that's what you're calling to apologize for.
Boom. Done.
Yeah.
Did it.
And they're like, okay, that's what they agree upon.
All right. Now here's your issue here. I'm going to try to analyze this a little bit. Anytime you are devising a cover-up for a lie of some sort, you do not involve an unknown third party. You don't bring in someone else who's not a part of the lie. No. That's insane.
So we see right from the start that this is going to come back to bite Larry in the butt, right?
Oh, yeah.
We know that this is coming. Especially if you've ever seen an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm before.
Right.
You know that that's where this is going.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what I was thinking about, too, just now? I was thinking about, because you said if you'd ever seen an episode before, it's like, well, nobody had. It's the first episode. But there was also that special. There's a scene in that special where Larry is out jogging with another woman, or not jogging, but he's just walking through Central Park with another woman, and she's like a beautiful woman.
Yeah, I think she's like the girlfriend. She's like a mistress of one of his friends.
I think it's
maybe
Jeff. I think Jeff has a mistress when he goes to New York. And anyway, they run into one of Cheryl's friends who happens to be in New York, and she's like jogging through Central Park. And I don't know if he ever explains who the woman is. I can't remember, but that similar concept is brought up there. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. Anyway, after they go through that whole lie thing that they're going to devise there, Jeff explains to Larry that, his parents are really upset about this Hitler comment that he made. And he explains that he had a gay cousin who escaped Nazi Germany, and that's why his parents were so sensitive to that Hitler joke. And Larry, of course, very sensitive as well, says, a gay Jew in Nazi Germany, whew, he must have had a hard time. What a combo. And anyway, Jeff asked Larry to do him a favor, come and apologize to his parents. His dad wants him to drop Larry as a client. So he's really, insisting that he apologizes.
Yeah, and Larry's really not happy about this. He does not want to go and apologize, but
he really doesn't.
He does care about Jeff and about this relationship, so he kind of agrees to go do this.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing too as we're going through this episode is that there's kind of a lot of different plots going on here. And one thing that's unique about Curb is these episodes are like close to a solid half hour. A lot of comedies are over in like 22 minutes, but like they're close to a solid half hour. There's a lot going on here.
There's no commercials.
Yeah, there's no
HBO,
commercials.
Right?
So we got like a full, I think the episode's like 28 minutes or something like that. Anyway, also, they talk about going to a restaurant, Mama's Boy. Larry and Jeff talk about this restaurant called Mama's Boy. And Larry asked Jeff if he's been to that restaurant. It's supposed to be good. He was going on Saturday with Richard Lewis and his girlfriend, but those plans fell through, and Jeff says he should take his parents there while they're in town. So we kind of set it up that Jeff is going to go check out this restaurant, and it sounds like Larry's also maybe going to go to the restaurant, maybe not. Richard Lewis, the plans fell through. Mama's Boy is a fun name for the restaurant.
It is, yeah.
They talk about it on the commentary. They're like, where'd you come up with that? And Larry's just like, just kind of thought of it.
Yeah, that's
So
funny.
next scene, Larry is in Larry's office, and we see in his office, kind of behind the receptionist there, he's got a Sour Grapes poster.
Yeah.
Sour Grapes is a movie that Larry David wrote. I don't know if he directed it. I can't remember.
He wrote and directed it.
And it came out in 1998 after Seinfeld, but before Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, and I think it did not get good reviews. It was like pretty much panned. Although we watched a trailer for it in preparation for this episode of our podcast, and it looks like a movie that we would think is hilarious.
There's one part in the trailer that I think they do this same line somewhere. I'm not sure, but there's like an old couple and like I think it's a police officer that goes to their door in the trailer, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but they say something like, the officer's like, "Can you tell me what the suspect looked like?" And they're like, "Oh," and it was a black police officer, and they're like, and they're really awkward about it, and they're like, he happened to be a black person. And that feels like something that like Larry David does, that way of speech there.
It seemed like from the trailer we could tell it was very much a Seinfeld, Curb Your Enthusiasm type of sense of humor.
Yeah, because this movie, as far as we know, is critically panned, and I'm looking to check it out. I'm thinking about renting it on Amazon.
My feeling after watching the trailer is that it was just ahead of its time, and that if it were to come out right now, it would be like, oh, this is a hilarious movie.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't come out in theaters because comedies don't really come out like that.
Yeah. But I'm excited to watch it.
I am too.
We're going to watch it soon.
We are.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, Larry asks his secretary if Richard Lewis is called. She says yes, and he's coming over. Also, Larry returns a phone call from his wife and tells her that Kathy Griffin's story. So we got that lie
and it worked out with
covered
Jeff.
up. Richard Lewis arrives then, and Richard Lewis is pretty worked up here.
Really distraught. He says, "I've never been married, and I think I'm in love, and I think you might have ruined this for me," about his relationship with Sophia.
Yeah. Well, because does Sophia tell him
then?
And,
yeah, because he didn't know about any of that fight that Larry got in with her when they were at the movie. So she has since told him her side of the story. And so Larry and Richard Lewis kind of fight about that fight, about who was in the wrong, whether it was Larry or Richard's girlfriend. And also, Richard Lewis is accusing Larry of looking at his girlfriend's breasts.
And Larry says, "They're not breasts, they're just big chemical balls, okay?"
Yeah.
Implying that they're fake.
Yeah. And again, we get the sense that Larry had no sort of sexual interest in this woman. He just finds her obnoxious and terrible.
Right, and I believe it. I think if a
too.
woman seems very terrible, I could see just,
Yeah, because she is a very attractive woman, the actress. She's very attractive.
I tell you. I looked her up on Instagram. I tried to find her. Couldn't find her.
Yeah, but we do get the sense that Larry could not care less about that and is really not into her at all.
Yeah.
Hates her.
Richard Lewis says that he's known Sophia for 6 weeks, and they've already had intercourse.
Yeah, that's how he phrases it.
Yes, and he also mentions twice that she speaks 7 languages.
Yeah,
and,
which, fun fact, when I looked up that actress, Sophia, what's her name? Sophia Morel?
Milos, I think.
Sophia Milos. When I looked her up on Wikipedia, her Wikipedia page mentions that she speaks 7 languages.
Do we think she really speaks 7 languages, though? Or do you think somebody changed it because she's on that episode and that's like a big line from the episode?
I was thinking it was probably like part of her resume or something, and they decided to incorporate it.
Is there a citation on there, or is there a little Wikipedia citation needed?
I didn't notice.
All right, we're going to research that and figure that out. And if you, the listener, know,
I was kind of thinking they kind of saw that like on her resume or something and decided to like incorporate it into Richard Lewis's monologue about why he likes her so much.
Oh gosh, now I need to know. I gotta know more about this.
Yeah, it's funny.
And anyway, after that intercourse line too, Larry says, "Congratulations on the intercourse."
Yeah.
We were watching this earlier today, and I paused it at that moment just for an unrelated reason, and it was just on the screen. You just see Larry with a little grin on his face. Richard just very upset, very angry, with his big kind of 1980s hair. He's got quite a look to him, and it just says "Congratulations on the intercourse" on the screen because we watched the captions on. Oh man, excellent screenshot there. Anyway, Richard Lewis asked Larry to apologize to Sophia on Saturday night, and Larry says there's no way they're having dinner. And Richard says, "Our relationship is at stake right now. You better call me tonight by sundown."
Yeah, and that relationship he's referring to is his relationship with Larry, I think.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Not Richard's relationship with Sophia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Well, it could be. I guess it could be either way. But that line, Larry gets a kick out of Richard saying, "Call me by sundown."
Yeah. Like, what's going to happen if I don't call you by sundown?
So funny. I wonder if that's like something that comes out just in improv. Because you get, like, when we watch movies that have like Vince Vaughn in them, for example, and you know those lines that are just like improv, like on Wedding Crashers, and you get those best lines there. I wonder if like by sundown, I mean, who's gonna write that in a script?
Right.
It's so good.
It's great. And it's I guess probably indicative of their actual relationship, because when we were watching the episode with commentary and Larry David was talking about his relationship with Richard Lewis, who he says he's known since they went to camp together when they were 13, he said it's like 90% of them fighting, right? They're like,
I think so.
They fight most of the time.
They're competitive,
but they are friends.
Yeah.
So I guess this is kind of true to life for him.
I think
with
so.
Richard Lewis.
Yeah. All right. Next scene. We're at Jeff's house now. Jeff's house much nicer than Larry's.
Yeah,
it's fancy.
I was kind of shocked by how much nicer and fancier it was than Larry's, given that Larry created Seinfeld.
Right, but Jeff's his manager and you know that kind of thing. But his house will change throughout the series too. But anyway, we see Jeff's wife Susie talking to her friends from Mommy and Me. What is that?
Brief.
I don't even remember what
Mommy and Me is like. It's like a group. It's like a mom and baby meetup group kind of thing.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Oh, okay. Larry says, "Hi, mommies." But Larry's there to apologize to Jeff's parents, and Jeff says he would have told Larry it was the wrong thing to do had they not been there. Jeff is like, yeah, this is the wrong thing to say.
That's what
you would
he's
never
saying
say
in
to
front of his parents.
Right? Yeah. His parents, I feel like they overreact on all this.
They really
They're
seem
like,
to.
This was rotten.
It was rotten.
I don't have the actors' names for the parents, but I think they said in the commentary that I think it was the guy, the dad, was one of the original like Second City members. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're very over. They're like, they're basically saying you're the worst person ever for saying this, and you need to get your life on track.
Yeah. So they eventually forgive Larry after he apologizes, but yeah, they are telling him that he needs to pull himself together.
And so look, there you go. Larry has now. He's got that lie figured out with Cheryl. He hasn't clarified the pants tense stuff necessarily.
No.
He's still kind of working on his relationship with Richard Lewis. He's not calling him by sundown.
No.
But he has now repaired things with Jeff and his parents.
Yes.
Except
the
next thing that happens.
Yeah. So after Larry apologizes to Jeff's parents, Susie, Jeff's wife, comes in. This is pretty much all we see of, we see her a little bit more later on, but we don't see a ton of Susie in this episode. And we don't see her at her best, which is when she's yelling at Larry. She doesn't really yell at Larry in this episode.
Right.
But she comes in and she says, Sammy is asleep with his arm around Sarah, and it's so cute and everybody should come look. So she's like clearly talking about the kids. Her and Jeff's kids, which is interesting because first of all, she's saying Sammy has his arm around Sarah, implying that there are two kids, whereas later on in the series, we'll see that Jeff and Susie only have one kid, which is Sammy.
Right.
And that Sammy is a girl, not a boy, as is implied by this statement. So they kind of made a creative choice later on where they had to redact this.
Yeah, Larry says in the commentary that we decided to change Sammy to a boy because it could go either way, or change it to a girl because we needed it for the joke that we were going to do for that episode.
Yeah.
So just another on the whim, like creating characters just for a particular joke.
Yeah.
I like it. But Larry does not go and look at this cute situation.
So Susie's basically asking everybody to come take a look at these cute kids who've fallen asleep with their arms around each other. And Jeff and his parents all are eager to go up and see this. But Larry's like, I'm not going to go look. I'm going to take off.
I got other stuff
Jeff,
to do.
And Jeff seems fine with that.
Yeah. You pointed out when we were watching that, you said that seems like something I would do.
I did. I said, like, Larry David, the character, reminds me of you, and in particular at this very part, that seems like something you would do.
I think I would do it now that I have, kids.
You think you would go up?
I
or
would
not?
go up. Of course, now that I have kids, yes, it's a beautiful thing. Kids are important. I think if somebody was like, hey, come look at my dog or something like that, I would say, no, thank you. A cat, though, definitely.
You would go see a cat.
Did I tell you, too, the side note, my friend Anthony wanted to put me down as a reference so he can adopt a cat. I don't know why that's a thing, but it's a thing. Anyway, I said, you need to send pics. He sent pics. They're adorable.
You didn't show me the pics.
I know. I'll show you later.
All right, good.
And you know what he's going to name them?
What?
Bebop and Rocksteady.
He got 2 cats?
He's getting 2. They're brother and sister. They can't be separated. That's what he said, at least. You know Bebop and Rocksteady, right?
Yeah, I know from TMNT. Yeah, but
TMNT.
Honestly, I'm a little annoyed right now because
we're not getting 2 more cats.
Well, because we didn't get 2 cats from the beginning. When we adopted our current cats, I wanted to adopt.
Well, our cat
her
was a boy
no.
When we were gonna adopt him, but then when we went in to grab him to get him, it was a girl or something.
She's always been a girl, but they at first told us she was a boy.
All right, this is a little, sort of similar to the episode.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
She's trying to get on this podcast now. She was on the table a minute ago.
Yeah,
oh
she
my
was.
Gosh. Well, hey, let's keep going here though. Larry does not go upstairs. He leaves anyway. He goes back to his house, and Cheryl has invited Nancy over to get this all out in the open here, to kind of get it out there. There was the pants tent. There was no arousal. Larry and Cheryl try to explain it was just the material on the pants, and Nancy insists that he was aroused due to the rubbing on his arm, and says it's fine, but she seems to want credit for it.
Yeah, that's what it seems like she's angling for. She wants everybody to acknowledge that she excited Larry.
Right. Now, Cheryl was unaware of the rubbing of the arm. And
Larry left that out of his story when he first told Cheryl about this.
Which, it's an unimportant detail, though, in my opinion. If that's not what caused it, let's not stir things up with that. But Cheryl starts to kind of doubt his story now, thinking maybe that arm rubbing did have something to do with it. Anyway, Nancy gets very angry, but Larry also gets angry and says, I know my sources. Referring to the sources for his,
pants tents.
Right. And he says, Sophia Loren was once a source. And he says, he wasn't aroused here. I think that part's funny. He's listing his sources, and Cheryl's like, I'm not a source ever? Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. And he's like, you're a source. Sometimes you're a source. Yeah.
It all ends with everyone shouting. Cheryl's mad at Larry. Nancy storms out. It's a whole lot. And then we lead into our final scene of the episode here. We're at Mama's Boy.
Yeah.
It's Saturday night, I think, probably. It's the evening.
Yes.
Larry and Cheryl check in at the hostess stand for the reservation for 4, but explain that the other couple can no longer make it. It's just 2 now.
The other couple, of course, were Richard Lewis and his girlfriend, but Larry has decided he is not comfortable having dinner with them.
Right.
After that fight.
Yeah, and as they're getting ready, they notice that Jeff is there. This is kind of similar to our opening scene because we were talking about that. Jeff is there with his family, and they go over and talk to them a little bit. Again, the parents now we learn the parents are upset again because Larry did not go up to see the baby, to see Sammy or the kid.
Yeah, that's what Jeff tells Larry. His parents are now upset again because Larry didn't go up to see the kids. And Jeff says his parents were like, what kind of man doesn't come upstairs to look at another man's kid? Which is so funny to me. It's so creepy
it's
sounding.
Such a weird quote there.
Yeah.
Anyway, the hostess goes on to explain to Larry they can't sit a table for 2 at a table for 4 because it wastes space. And they're like, but we were going to sit there anyways, and we had reservations. It doesn't really make sense, lady. But anyway, Jeff invites them to sit with them.
Yeah, that's after when the hostess is refusing to give them a table for 2 or seat the 2 of them at a table for 4. Cheryl's like, you should just tell her who you are. Tell her, you're Larry David, the creator of Seinfeld. And he's like reluctant to even do that.
Right.
So Cheryl tells her herself, and the waitress is clearly unimpressed, doesn't care at all. Jeff later steps in and says the same thing, like, this guy created Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Waitress doesn't care.
Doesn't work. Yeah. She says she's seen like an episode maybe.
Yeah.
But so they do end up joining Jeff's table, and things get a little cramped as well. And it's awkward,
Sure.
Anyway, as they're all ordering, there's some fun lines in there too. Jeff's dad orders something called the fish frenzy.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming he made that line up too.
I think he made it up. It was improv. And when we were listening to the episode with commentary, they were saying like after that line, whenever they would like order food on set, everybody would be like, oh, I want the fish frenzy, which is so funny.
I mean, this feels like maybe it's just a thing to us, but I feel like older people, parents, if you will, are always ordering fish and seafood at
they always do
when we go out to eat,
and they always have so many questions about the menu, and about what everybody else at the table is ordering.
They gotta confirm it with everybody.
Yeah, that seems to happen anytime we go out with our families.
Oh yeah,
it never happens with us. I don't ask you what you're ordering.
Oh, I sometimes ask what you're getting. Although I usually only ask when we're out with everybody, and I'm just trying to make conversation. We got a whole table full of people, and I'm like, what are you getting?
Yeah, but I guess this just rang very true to us.
It really did.
Our experiences.
Well, we had just gone out, and I think both of your grandparents ordered salmon and shrimp and whatnot. That's what they do.
Yep.
And at one point, the owner, the restaurant owner, comes over, Mama's boy, if you will, comes over and talks to the table. Larry asks, "Are you Mama's boy?" And that's fun. Larry also mentions afterward, it's good to see, not to the guy, but he mentions it's good to see a black person, black entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
The family is like, well, why is that? And he just kind of stops talking there.
Yeah, that was funny.
And then Kathy Griffin happens to be at this restaurant as well, and she comes over to the table. And she says that, what, do you want to explain that part?
Yeah, so she's just stopping by the table to say hi, but she also comes to ask if Larry can work on a pilot for her. So Larry and Jeff, meanwhile, are kind of like trying to just kind of dismiss her as quickly as possible.
Because Larry's like, oh yeah, about the pilot. But this is the first time she's ever in real life actually mentioned this pilot idea or this writing concept idea.
Yeah.
Whereas the lie was that they had already had this conversation, which is kind of crazy. That's what she wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
And Cheryl, you could see the wheels turning in her head that she was lied to about this thing.
Yeah.
And then the final shot, it starts to zoom in as it does in an iconic way after Kathy Griffin walks away. And
of Cheryl just kind of like staring at Larry like with disapproval and with
Larry just
anger.
And Larry's face just kind of, making that face. And then bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, but one thing that happens even before I think Kathy Griffin comes up is we see Richard Lewis and his new girlfriend being seated, just the two of them at a table.
Oh, yeah.
So
they were able to get a table for two.
Yeah, they were able to get a table for two. So Larry's kind of, you can see him getting kind of upset about that.
Woo.
Yeah.
This has been so far our longest episode talking about this show.
Oh, man.
But it's, like we said, one of our favorite shows. But so let's just talk about that as a pilot there. What did you think?
Oh, a solid pilot.
A solid pilot. One thing that I love about this show is that, the way things tie in at the end, and you're always kind of left with that big laugh of like everything coming together. All of these episodes, I mean, these episodes are almost 20 years old. They hold up, and they hold up in such a great way. They are still just as good. You can watch season 1, and you can watch the most recent season. All of them fantastic. And I can't think of too many shows other than a show like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which has been on for a really long time, where the quality is still like it's still good, because they do take those hiatuses when they need to, or they only put out 8 to 10 episodes and things like that. What a good show. Do you want to talk about some of our favorite episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm? Because we've seen pretty much all the episodes. Your favorite, one of your favorite, you were just kind of trying to come up with off the top of your head, but one of your favorites was the TiVo guy episode.
Yeah, which is from season 6. Yeah, and this is where, the episode description is, a malfunctioning TV device puts Larry's marriage with Cheryl into a crisis mode.
And this is, he's trying to, there's a guy fixing his TiVo, which is DVR, basically. And while that's happening, he had a lot of issues with getting the TiVo guy there. But while that's happening, Cheryl is on a plane trying to
crashing.
And there's heavy turbulence. They think they're going to die. And Larry's like basically dismissing her, and I think he ends up hanging up on her as he's trying to get the TiVo guy to fix the TV.
Yeah, and that effectively ends his marriage with Cheryl.
It does.
Yeah.
And my favorite episode, I think it's from that same season. It might be earlier in the season. My favorite episode is the Ida Funkhauser Roadside Memorial.
Also a good one.
The description on that one: Larry argues with Susie and Richard Lewis over condolences and confronts a pair of sample abusers.
Yeah.
The gist of that episode is that Marty Funkhauser, his good friend, his mother died crossing the street in her automatic wheelchair, and there's a roadside memorial there. And Larry, at one point he goes to get ice cream, and there's some people abusing free samples of ice cream by getting too many samples. Anyways, he angers a lot of people and he ends up stealing some flowers from the roadside memorial in order to smooth things over. It does not work out well.
Yeah.
It's a great episode.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these episodes, if you have never even seen this show, you could just pick one of these episodes and watch it, and you can get right into the characters. Yeah. Because a lot of the characters are celebrities playing themselves.
Definitely.
Another thing, we were looking back at this show, we watched season 9, episode 6, because Andrea Savage from I'm Sorry is in that. And we
did a few weeks ago. We
did that a few weeks ago. Yeah. And, we didn't know who she was, I think, when we watched the episode. So we wanted to go back and see who'd she play, Richard Lewis's girlfriend. But we noticed it's interesting that it kind of called back to the series premiere in a way. I mean,
the series premiere, which was 17 years earlier than the episode.
Because there's some jokes in there. Eventually, there's one point where Larry is getting, I guess, fitted for a suit, if you will, or something like that, for pants. And another side story going on is that he tells JB Smoove's character, which is Leon Black, who's living with him at the time, that he's always found Sophia Loren very beautiful, and JB Smoove is like on a mission to find some like naked like videos or whatever pictures of Sophia Loren, and anyway, he sends him a video, a very sexy video of Sophia Loren at the same time
while he's getting fitted for pants by Andrea Savage's character,
which does cause a pants tent, but it's a real pants tent.
A real pants tent.
And Andrea Savage's character thinks that
in the pilot he mentioned Sophia Loren as one of his sources.
One of his sources. Yeah. So they're staying true to the characters even that far later.
That was really interesting to me.
And the awkwardness of the sources of so that was kind of a fun callback there with that. And I don't even know if it's intentional that they called it back to that first episode. I kind of doubt that it even is, but anyway, Larry David has a thing for Sophia Loren. So
that's the key takeaway, I guess.
Yes. So, gosh, this is a fun episode. It's a fun show. Next week, we're going to be talking about a show that you love.
One of my all-time favorite shows.
All-time favorites. You want to tell us?
It's Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
That's on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I've seen the pilot. And I've seen like random episodes here and there.
But I'm very excited for you to have to like sit down with me and really pay attention to this.
We'll see. Maybe I'll get hooked. Maybe I'll start watching it like with some of these other shows. Some of these other shows like Wonder Years and stuff. I'm like psyched to be watching them all the time.
You really liked The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is the same creator as
it's an Amy Sherman Palladino.
We did an episode of that a while ago.
Oh, goodness. So, hey, if you want to watch some Gilmore Girls and want to listen to some people talk about some Gilmore Girls, you should tune in next week. Hey, until then, guys, you should subscribe on iTunes. Give us 5-star reviews, or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, follow us on Facebook at You Me and TV, on Twitter, You Me and TV Pod, on Instagram at You Me and TV Podcast. You can email us if you want to at youmeandtvpodcast@gmail.com. And again, like I said, those 5-star reviews. You know how many reviews we have at this moment right now? 12. And you know how many downloads we've had? I want to say thousands. So, guys, where you at? Give us some reviews.
Come on.
I know you've forgotten your Apple ID. We've all forgotten our Apple ID.
Sure have.
But if you do remember, go in there, just hit that 5-star. Or hit that 5-star and also say, hey, guys, love the show.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be pleasant.
And if you don't love the show,
don't
move along.
Just move along.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been fun, guys. And you know what? I hope everybody has a wonderful week. The summer's winding down.
Enjoy yourself.
Enjoy yourself. You know what I just remembered is I had a joke that I was going to say earlier, and I was going to work it in. I was like, oh, can I work it in at the end?
Oh, what is it?
Oh, it's not good. I was going to say, today we're going to be talking about Curb Your Enthusiasm. You know what? Actually, the original title was Carb Your Enthusiasm, and it was all about giving up bread. Not a good joke.
No, it's really
it's a terrible
not.
joke. And that's how we're going to end. And hopefully the music is playing in the background right now. We add that, not that music, our theme music. We add it in later, so I don't know when it's coming in. Anyways, here we go. Bye.